Thank you for joining. This is our fourth and final series right now, classes on Lojong of the Tuesday night series that I'm doing. And thank you so much for joining. So we're going to just complete this part, and then Lunan will have a little bit more meditative and more videos of Rinpoche and a little bit deeper dive for now. And then of course I'm back in September. I also have tomorrow night finishing the Tantra, just a taste of Introduction to Tantra. So for this visit. And so thank you so much for joining. We've had a good question. We were just talking about, before we start our prayers, the weekend, which was on death, heart spoon, or as Rinpoche renamed, the heart's utmost need, a really profound, somewhat uncomfortable poem from Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche. Very incredible poem we were reading, incredible text verses. So some of us were thinking about it, and a really good question here tonight is I was discussing some very dear friends of mine who recently lost their long-term spouses, partners. And they're grieving, and yet they're Dharma practitioners. So how they're balancing their minds based on their practice. And so what I found is the question was, do you find they're still destabilized because of the grief, because of the loss because of the death, or not as much with the Dharma practice? So I think it's really hard initially for both of them. Initially in the emails I got from both of them, because I wasn't. No, one of them I had just returned to the States, and she's in the States, so she phoned me very late at night, right when her husband died, just like a half an hour later. So at that moment, there's just shock. You really do. Most people I know still go through a shock. So I could tell in her voice and the crying and the shock, and then it goes on, and then there's all these family members for her. So all of that kind of checking in and dealing. So I think it depends on your circumstances and the level of your practice. I think certainly it helps the mind to be more stable. The other person as well, I was out of the country, so the emails I got were, she was pretty lost in the beginning. This is you feel kind of half your being is not there, and you're not operating so clearly. So I think initially it's like that for a lot of people. That's hard to not have that happen. I mean, I would imagine, and I know we can go through, some of us here, when we got the message about Lama Zopa Rinpoche passed. So for some of us, if you're very connected with Rinpoche, the first, month or so for me was like a fog, frankly. This is somebody really close to me, my guru, very important to me. Many students said that. Many students were, then we came together. Some of us were able to come together and meet. People came together to the centers, which is great about the centers. Everybody was doing similar practices all around the planet, which was amazing. So we can join that family. But then I had the fortune, I was already headed to go to Kopan because I was leading a pilgrimage. So many people met there, where Rinpoche's holy body. And we were all in a kind of depressed days of shock, disbelief, and yet supporting each other, and then doing pujas like all day long, all the time. But I remember I had to lead this pilgrimage, and I remember at times I was really like, I'm not really here right now, trying to process. So I think that does, in general, those kind of very deep losses do something to us. And I think it's fine to acknowledge that, and the crew on the pilgrimage, they were great, because they just kind of allowed me to do what I needed to do, even though, I was leading them, and that went fine, and led a retreat for them and took them up the mountain. But at times I was just kind of like spaced out, of like, wow, like life without Rinpoche, So I think people have that about their partners or close family members, close friends that you spend a lot of time with. Okay. So with that in mind, because this could be our last day, this could be our last class for anybody, Doesn't mean that it's the last, just because it's the last Lojong class of this series. It could be something to keep it heightened about our own mortality. So we are going to start with the prayers, and just take a moment right now before we start the prayers to consider your own motivation for this evening and all the activities of the rest of your day. And again, please consider as if you're in a Gompa, even if you're online. So to have that attitude as if you're in a Gompa and not engaging in other activities, eating or drinking, things like that. And if you're able to put your camera on, that's great. And think about your own motivation right now while you're here this evening. And if we can get some more information of how to best adjust our mind if suffering appears, if happiness appears, that it's all directed and invested in our practicing Dharma, in our joining with a path that will help us get fully enlightened. Because then we can unlimitedly, the real purpose, we can unlimitedly benefit all living beings. So if you like that idea, that Mahayana motivation, please think about folding it into your own motivation, or aligning your motivation somewhat like that, and taking a moment at least directing the mind in a most positive way. Please set your motivation. So we'll begin with some prayers. And visualizing, imagining the Buddha is in front, inseparable with any particular teacher we have, granting us blessings for this, getting this information this evening, clearing obstacles in general to our practice. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, savior, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path to sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud, see all causative phenomena like this. By these merits may transmigratory beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the enemy of faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. We're going to go to the 7-limb prayer. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually ranged and mentally emanated. I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for transmigratory beings. I dedicate my own and others' virtues to great enlightenment. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Yedam Guru Radha Mandalagam Nirata Yami. Refuge and bodhicitta before the teachings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. O Sangye Chodan Soki Chonamla Janchu Badu De Nikyap Suchi Dagi Chin Yingi Beso Namki Drola Penchu Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chodan Soki Chonamla Janchu Badu De Nikyap Suchi Dagi Chin Yingi Beso Namki Drola Penchu Sangye Druparsho. So here it says, of listening, by my merits of listening to the Dharma. So some of you know that third line, Dagichen Ingipe Sonamki, Songnampi, is slightly different when you do the version in your own practice, where you say, by my practice of giving and other perfections, my practice of generosity and other Dagichen Sogi Pe Sonamki, slightly different. So listening to the Dharma, so we talked a little bit this weekend and we were joking about, I had mentioned something and I was reviewing even the 9-point death meditation and asking people. And so I just mentioned something and then I said, asked them the question about that. And people were like, so we were joking about how we listen. And I said, so that just went right in and right out the other. So one of the things they talk about in the teachings in general, how we listen to the Dharma. And it's really nice when I come to teachings myself, is there's ways that you can kind of see the teacher, they say is, the kind of king of medicines. They're giving you medicine. Sometimes they say, see, the teacher is the Buddha. I'm not saying that I'm a Buddha at all, but it's good for your mind. And mainly you want to see them as like the king of doctors. So we go to the doctor gives us medicine. They give us some sort of diagnosis, they advise, right? And then we leave, and if we take the medicine, and then we're encouraged and we're given instructions from what they would call the medical care practitioners around that medical facility or that doctor, right? So they help us, whether you go to a physical therapist or you go to somebody else like that. So it's a complete package. So if we go to the Dharma, but then you come to this king of doctors in a sense for teaching, but then you're not taking the medicine, you're not doing the practices, and then there's people around, like people from the center that can help, but you don't really engage as much. It's not going to work as well, right? So sometimes when I would come, I would think, I come to this teaching and I'm sick. So I don't mean to say, to lay a trip on you that you are sick and you're ill, but because I don't have a direct perception of emptiness, there's distortion in my mind. There's distortion in my view every moment that I'm breathing. And then it causes me to suffer, and it causes me to over exaggerate certain activities that happens, interactions, experiences I have. It causes me to underestimate what's out there and cause aversion, hatred, anger. You over embellish something, then it causes attachment, desire, grasping. It's just not, this is the natural human view of what happens. So in a way, it's a kind of delusion, it's a kind of imbalance, where it's a kind of sickness. It's a kind of sickness. So that's one way I would come, is seeing like, okay, I'm coming for the medicine, let me try to apply. But how do we listen to the teachings well? So they talk about, some of you are familiar, the 3 pots. Anyone that was here this weekend, what do you remember? Anybody here? How you listen to 3 pots? What are the 3 pots? Anybody? Please unmute.
There are the 3 types of faulty: the tainted pot, the broken pot, and the pot that has its lid covered.
So what's the first? Sorry, what was the first one, Dragos?
I'm not sure if the order is correct, but I know that one is tainted. So if we put the Dharma inside that pot, then the Dharma gets mixed with.
Okay, tainted. Well, one of them you've got. Let's say we've got a pot with a hole. Do you listen like that? You got a pot with a hole. That means that anything you put in, it just runs right out. That's a lot of. So I gave an example. I gave this funny example where people would go to teachings with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Many countries, in Europe, he's taught, in the States. And so they go to teachings, and then you'd kind of go home and tell somebody else that wasn't there, like, oh, people say, it was so powerful. Wow, those teachings were so powerful. This is like the States, people say, this is the language, but wow. And then somebody'd say, what did he teach about? And then you could see it'd be like, no recollection at all, nothing, couldn't even repeat one line, but you'd be like, and then they'd remind you the title, and you kind of go, okay, So that's like with the whole, nothing goes in. You just heard it, but we weren't really consciously listening. Okay, active listening. Then you mentioned Dragos. Then you have you were saying tainted, a dirty pot, right?
Yeah, dirty pot.
Tainted pot. When you have a dirty pot, right? Dirty pot means I've already got my mind made up. So whatever you tell me, Dharma teachings, like, nah, I don't think that's true, or I'm not really interested, or I've got all these deluded thoughts going on that I'm thinking about, instead of, again, active listening, right? And then we've got a pot with a lid on so tightly, nothing gets in. That's also where I've got my mind made up and I'm not really interested in this, and, distracted, things like that. So you have to think about how you're listening, and can we practice active listening? Okay, so let's go back just a little bit from last week. And thank you, Lizette, for sending out my little message to everybody. About turning suffering into happiness, into the path to enlightenment. Again, we were talking about that. And we were using examples from last week where somebody brought up their neighbor, if you remember, their neighbor and the wall, what was happening. So we were looking at ultimate suffering, analyzing the concrete nature you impute on the wall and the neighbor. Doesn't exist like that at all. Understanding everything's coming from my mind. So the idea of even my neighbor. So we even put a my in front of it. So there's an ownership that solidifies the neighbor. my neighbor. We do it to everything. My car, my cup, my pen, okay, my jacket, my kid, my dog, my flat. So sometimes I try to cut that a little bit in my own life of being like the car I drive, the place I live, the shirt I'm wearing, or, rather so that there's not this so much, it's my thing and it's solid. And if you touch this thing, if you interfere with this thing at all, I'm going to be upset because I don't understand what I'm imputing at all. I don't understand that there is a labeling process. So I ask you to really break down your issues this week. Continue to break them down. This is a lifelong practice. This isn't a one-time thing. This is your exercise from here on out. You hear these teachings. We have to practice it. Really have to practice it. So analyze as much as you can. As much as you can. That's why emptiness meditation is really helpful in general, to learn. First, read the smaller books on emptiness. I've mentioned that before. Get some class time on emptiness. You can watch things online about emptiness. But don't launch into like the really heavy emptiness teachings for advanced people. Go take your pace by pace so that you understand. Read the thinner books, write your questions down, think about that. Even Sangye Kadro, Venerable Sangye Kadro, in the famous book we often use in meditation, How to Meditate. How to Meditate. People say it's a beginner's book. It's not a beginner's book. It's perfect at any phase of your meditation. And she has all kinds of examples of meditations in there, all perfectly laid out. So there, go to the emptiness meditation, which is a really nice emptiness meditation. You get a sense of how to meditate on emptiness. Do that one over, and they're designed to do over and over again, to get your mind in this view. And then you come out of the meditation and question things, poke things. So when you get upset, then try to notice what's going on with your mind. And it's usually between self-cherishing and self-grasping. That's our mind. Okay, and that's why we suffer. So keep analyzing. Does this thing that I'm imputing this very heavy concrete notion on, right? Does it have an ability to change? The neighbor changes. We know that. The wall changes. The wall might look concrete, but we know it's made out of molecules that are moving in a certain configuration. Walls were built. There was a time before the wall. There will be a time after the wall. The wall's degenerating at this moment. Even something as solid as a wall or a floor or a house, like that. So noticing your ownership, your belongings, ownership on loved ones. Even my friend said to me, these two Dharma practitioners losing their husbands, happened to be husbands that they lost, and even that idea one of them said of my husband, to have to say, oh no, in the hospital, it was my husband who died. She had to say that to somebody. So then she suddenly was like, my husband who died, like how it, kind of made her suffering worse. My husband died, And then the other thing you think about is if you have the ideas, this is all about training our mind and turning our mind to something, using it in the path to enlightenment. That's what this initial text was all about, is when you say my husband and you lost your husband, you can say my wife, you lost your wife or something. But we're very caught up in the I, me, my experience, right? I, me, mine, or me, myself, and I, we say. So, but then, if you want to get the self-cherishing out of the way, so the self-grasping clings on like that. But the self-cherishing is, I'm the only one experiencing this. It's all about me. It's not. So at that moment, turn that external. What about all the other people who've lost partners, longtime partners? You're not alone. All these other people that have my husband or my wife in the hospital have to say that. There's all these other people that are going through it. All these other people. I still have trouble we're all struggling with the Gaza situation right now. And I think a lot of people struggle. And I know there was a protest yesterday in The Hague and all over. There were many protests I heard about in different places. And so you know, there was some things I've read, you've read some of these stories and the bombings and all these other things. And there was somebody that, like, one guy lost like 127 family members or something. Like, I just couldn't even get my mind around that. I don't even know if I know 127 people, but you know, Palestinians often have a lot of kids, and there's a lot of cousins, but just your whole family's kind of wiped out. I just couldn't, whether your family's large or small, they're gone. You know, it's inconceivable. It's really inconceivable, especially from living in this culture where it's peaceful for the most part. And the other thing is, you can look at the wall, the neighbor, any of this, right? Again, if it has an ability to change, this is analyzing with ultimate reality. That means it's a product from other things, comes from other things. Because if something comes from other things, let's think about it. It has an ability to change. Okay. And that's how something can exist, because it changes, comes from something else. It depends on other things to arise, dependent arising. Comes into existence based on other things, by depending on other things. What doesn't exist like that? Okay. So it's very hard for us to conceive of, you know, but we're seeing a solidified thing. My husband, my wall, my neighbor is doing, you know, seems solidified. The neighbor comes from other things, came from sperm and egg, the body. That's biologically proven, right? And then their whole being and their whole mind comes from previous moments of that consciousness. They were in another form. They weren't neighbor. They were in another form in another life, Buddhism says. Okay. So in that other life, you may have interacted with them in a different form as well, right? And you may have been doing this stuff to them. That's how karma works. So we have to look at the broad view. Okay. We communicating? Make sense? So I was just asking you to notice that concreteness. And then another thing I said was to become, is everybody, we're communicating online? Okay, everybody okay? Was to familiarize yourself, if you remember this exercise, some of you did over the weekend, with the 9-point death meditation. Okay. How is it divided up? Anybody remember?
Death is certain.
That is certain.
Okay, so it's divided into 3 routes.
We don't know the time of death.
And each route has 3 reasonings under it. No, I first asked, how is it divided up? Okay.
Oh, it's 3 into 3.
Yeah, so 3
each
routes.
of the 3 has another 3.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Dragos. So we've got 3 main routes. What are 3 main routes? Death is certain. We got number 1. Thank you. A couple of you. Number 2.
Time of death is uncertain.
Time of death is uncertain. Number 3.
Only Dharma can help at the time of death.
Only Dharma helps at the time of death. Thank you. So 3 reasonings under death is certain. What do you remember? 3 reasonings under death is certain. First route. 3 reasonings. What's number 1? What do you remember?
Nobody
no
can
force.
escape death.
Okay, nobody can escape. There's no power you can do to escape from death. Everybody dies. That's number 1. Number 2. You're doing great.
People die at all
Somebody-
ages.
So, sorry?
People die at all ages.
Okay, so that's the second point.
Oh.
That goes under the second route. So this is, again, think about death is certain. Death is certain. I'm definitely going to die. There's no power in the universe that can help death come. That's number 1 reasoning. Number 2 reasoning under death is certain is time is ticking away. Tick, 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 tick. It's going. It's going. I had friends, you know, I love this. I had a number of friends turned 50. And the joke, I think they went out to lunch and they were saying, like, you know, they're middle age at 50. Talk about denial. So I said, oh, everybody living to be 100? You know, they might, but then they would be middle age, but not that many. More and more people do seem to live to 100, but not that often. So it's denial that 50 is not really middle age for the average lifespan. You know, maybe 40, maybe you get to 40. Could say that might be middle age, but we don't know. So time is ticking away. The third one is we don't have a lot of time we're not formal Dharma practice. We don't have a lot of time. We're not doing a lot of it. When you think about, and be honest, a third of your day is sleeping, roughly. Third of your life you spend sleeping. Think about that. That's gone. Third is sleep. Look at all the time you spend educating yourself, working, having relationships, getting into relationships, getting out of relationships, being in relationships, you know, washing your body, feeding your body, covering your body. I mean, it's endless, endless, and all the other things that you do. Dharma practice, how much time? So I was asking people to realistically, we were doing this more this weekend, realistically reach into your practice and into your life and think about what you can seriously, realistically adjust so that there's more time for practice. And don't make it drastic, make it gradual so you'll really do it. So I know people, they every month, a little 10 more minutes went into Dharma practice. So seriously, like that, 10 minutes, great. Do it, 10 minutes, 1 month, but then you saw the value. So the next month they went, I can certainly find 10 more minutes and take 10 minutes from this waste of time and move it over here and adjust. Takes time to make a habit. So then you adjust. You know, there were people I knew that were doing things later in the day in their Dharma practice after work, too tired. So I knew people that got up a little earlier and then they felt like they got a little half an hour done before they went to work. That was a buoyant cushion for them. They like that. Lifts you up. Second heading, the second main root is the time of death is uncertain. Time of death is uncertain. So Lizette, this comes into people die at all different ages, or whoever said that. I forget, I think it was Lizette. We're in a world system, people die at all different ages, as we know. That's number one. Second one of the time of death is uncertain. What do you remember? Second reasoning. Anybody?
There are
Okay.
lots of reasons which make you die and very little who keeps you alive.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Many, many things are contributing to your death. Disasters, environmental toxins, food poisoning, accidents, bacterias, viruses, murder, war, like that, contributing to your death. Today, I unfortunately saw an accident. I was on the bicycle and it was a bicycle that got hit, I think, by a motor scooter. And the guy on the bicycle he was alive and everything, but not looking too good, like that. And everybody was there, the police, and yeah, it was not so pleasant. And you don't know, that could be you. One moment you're just cruising along, somebody comes out of nowhere. Happens a lot. Okay. So many things. And then the third one is the body's very delicate, and that's why you end up dying. It could have been this person. Hopefully they're going to be okay, but they're going to have a little bit of a recovery, I think, like that, or a big recovery. So those three. And then the last heading is only thing that really benefits you is your spiritual practice, your Dharma practice, because your possessions and position are of no help. Your friends and family are of no help, and your body's of no help. Okay. So again, I mentioned friends and family can be helpful if they know your practice and will do your practice around you or in your ear or remind you of what to think about. That can be helpful, but often they're crying over you. They're distraught. They're begging you not to die, that they can't function without you. Those kind of things wouldn't be very helpful. If there's disturbance in the room when you're dying, that's something to think about. So, and these lead to 3 resolutions. So the first 3 reasonings will lead you to a resolution. I want to practice. Death is certain, I'm going to practice. The second one, the time of death is uncertain. I have to practice now. And the third one is I have to practice well so that I'm ready. So you can keep thinking about that. So what I want to do is I'm going to share the end of the text, turning suffering into and happiness into a path to enlightenment. So I've come down here. We were looking at the way of taking happiness as the path to enlightenment. Okay, we looked at relative truth because part of what happens is when you're happy, the mind is lazy. We don't really practice when the mind is happy. Okay, so I really like this when he says, you ought to think. I mean, you need some happiness to practice Dharma, okay? But you also need some suffering, and that is the optimum situation of the human realm. That's why this is the best realm, the best situation from which to reach enlightenment is the human realm. We have a balance. You know, I have suffering in my life. Why? The suffering motivates me. I want to get out of this mess. Okay. And then I have some happiness and leisure. So that allows me to come to the center, to take time in my life. I have ability to meditate, to do things. I was thinking at Laudo last year on retreat, there's a woman in her 30s. She's the cook, Sangmo. She's wonderful. I met her when she came to Laudo. She was around maybe 16, 18 years old. She's now about 34, I think. She's been at Laudo on and off. She's left and come back and left and come back. And she lives an hour away. She's from a poor family. So she's from a poor family, and which means in that region, she doesn't really have leisure to be able to go to another country and visit some holy shrine, to go to teachings with, you know, to do like a retreat like I did last summer. She doesn't have the time in her life to take 4 months off and say, I think I'll do retreat. You know, she could set it up now at this point that there's a lot of people at Laudo kind of wants to support her and have her be there longer term, and she could set something up like that. And we've discussed that with her, and she's wonderful. She's kind of like my little sister. And but when you're poor in that region, you don't have a choice. When you're poor in the world, a lot of times you're just working to survive. You don't have an option like that. So it's something to think about. We have this perfect situation. So here it says, you ought to think, it is my great fortune to have practiced the Dharma in happiness. Now, whatever the circumstances, I'm converting this happiness into Dharma. So whatever comes to you, you have good fortune. Can I use it in my Dharma practice? Instead of just like, oh, great, you know, having ice cream now, isn't this wonderful with my friends? But do you ever stop for a moment and think, I just had, where were we that we, I just was out with people and we had this beautiful spread of food. You know, I just stopped. And also we did it on over the weekend because we had lunch together here, and people brought wonderful food, and it was really sweet to share the food together. And at one point I looked at the table and I was just like, this is abundance of very healthy food you have in this part of the world, like that. Same like I have in the United States. I can go out and buy very healthy food that nourishes you. So in Kathmandu, because it's a poor country and many other poor countries, there's very limited types of food that are there. So when you go to the market and you want to buy fruit, and you know what it's like in our markets, you can buy almost any kind of fruit you want, like that. And I mean, they do say it's nice to eat local fruit that is grown, but you can, you know, you can get a lot of different types of fruit. So usually in Nepal, it's apples, oranges, and bananas. Now, there will be some papayas, there will be some guavas in the season, mangoes in the season. I mean, occasionally now you can find strawberries at like 1 or 2 markets, but they're not in very good condition. They don't have much flavor. It's just the nature. So it's apples, oranges, bananas. Some of them have no taste. They're just not grown with any kind of decent soil, or they're shipped in from so far that by the time they get there, no energy in the food, right? So I was just thinking, looking at all this and thinking, so you can enjoy it, you know, a nice meal out, your friends, whatever, and then to think like, wow, just take a moment and like the grace of having this. Do you ever think of offering it for a moment to all the beings starving around the planet? Take a moment. That's why we offer our food too, to really the appreciation, you know, and as Rinpoche says, to get the most benefit is to offer in the right way. Make the offering rather than me jumping in with grasping. Great, I want the pizza, I want to eat that. And the main point is to offer, to get the merit from offering the food like that. Incredible. Then you can enjoy. Doesn't mean you don't enjoy. So also the text goes on, from the Dharma, happiness will arise continuously. Okay, so the more I'm using the happiness and using it in situations like that. So think about more and more offering a situation. You have a job, let's say, you're gainfully employed, we would say. You have a job that helps you pay for your place to live, pay for your food, pay for clothes, pay for entertainment, travel, wonderful things, you know. So many things we can do, affording us a bit of freedom like that, affording us a bit of freedom. So I have that happen. So the fact that you have that happen, right? Let's use some of it in the Dharma then. I have to give back in some way. Rather than just the take, me. I'm set. Okay, now that I have this, what's the next thing I can acquire with my money? Why don't we think about some of it, charity, some generosity. Some of it, I'm gonna make sure I can etch out, carve out in my schedule next year that I'm gonna do that retreat for a little bit longer. I'll take that week and I'll have the money to go to that retreat for that week or even longer. Maybe you set up in your life, you're gonna do a Vajrasattva retreat one day. I know people that do that. There's somebody here that got back. They're not here tonight, but they got back in the spring from a Vajrasattva retreat at Kopan in Nepal. So they planned it. They needed to set it up. The same thing with my retreat last year. I had to set it up a year in advance, make sure this was happening, that I had the funds, that I had this, I had that it was set. It takes a while to do it. But look, if you have to look further ahead, look further ahead to make sure that before, I know some people say, before I die, I'm going to do my Vajrasattva retreat. Fantastic. Even that, I know Lama Yeshe used to say, when you do your Vajrasattva retreat, which is a big purification retreat, it takes about 3 months, full time. Vajrasattva is a deity that helps us purify. Beautiful practice. So most of us do the practice at night, a short version. But if you want to do the retreat, and Lama Yeshe would say, it closes the doors to the lower realms for you. That's it. So that would be a nice piece of insurance. People talk about retirement accounts. That's a nice retirement account, to know that I'm not going to fall back into some really torturous realm. So it's something you can you plan that? Can you put that in your mind? Thus, you should train Dharma and happiness to become the support of one another. That's how they work. So I'm going to do my Dharma practice. And what that does helps me accumulate the conditions to have better and better and better life to achieve. But I'm not just going to use it for a better life so I'm happier. I'm going to use the happiness that I get, the comfort that I get, to feed it back into Dharma practice. Okay, they go hand in hand. Yeah. Otherwise, it says, like boiling water in a wooden pot, in the end, it will become whatever it was before. Okay, nothing happens with it. Okay, so you should achieve the essential by applying whatever happiness arises to the Dharma. Let it fuel your Dharma practice. Because I'm upbeat and I feel good right now, I can practice. My dear friend I mentioned this past weekend, she passed away from ovarian cancer, horrible cancer. And when she was dying, she was given a practice by Rinpoche that was a lot. She never really got started on the practice some years before. And then we would come in shifts and do the practice with her. And one night she was lying on the sofa because she was too weak to do the practice anymore. So I was sitting on the floor in front of her and I was reciting, telling her what to visualize and reciting these mantras. And all of a sudden she interrupted me in the middle and she turned. I remember her turning her face. She was quite weak at the time. And she turned and she said, I should have done the practice that Rinpoche advised. I should have done it. And you don't want to have that kind of regret when you're dying that, why not do it now? Even do little bits now. Just get started. That's hugely helpful. Get started on something. Get started on something. Okay. So what happens is she was suffering with cancer, too weak, too difficult at that point. So sometimes your suffering's overwhelming. You can't practice, right? So if you're happy now, if you're healthy now, use it now for the Dharma. Don't let it just go to our mind of, I want more happiness, I want more of this, more bliss, more for me. What about me? What about me? Use it in some Dharma practice. And here it says, even if you're happy, if you cannot recognize it, okay, then it won't become an instrument of Dharma practice. Okay, so if I don't really know what the happiness is, that buoyant happiness, and happiness that isn't just directed at me and my happiness. Happiness that can rejoice and celebrate and appreciate it like that. So the antidote, so as the antidote to hopes, because you hope for additional happiness, you should apply the appropriate method and should possess the ambrosia of contentment with whatever you have. Contentment's great. You know, contentment, and this is something is in order to meditate well. So when they talk about a Shine retreat, okay, Shine is a Tibetan word for calm abiding, okay? Sanskrit is shamatha, okay? And it's meditative stabilization, okay? So you need that to get emptiness. You need that very high level. There's 9 stages to achieve Shine, and you need that meditative stabilization. The reason you want to attain it is not just to say I'm a great meditator and I can keep my mind focused, is to, in meditation, get emptiness directly, being able to focus directly on the absence of inherent nature in meditation and be able to keep your mind there unwaveringly to manifest a direct perception of emptiness, the view of reality. And then everything changes for you. Huge, profound realization. Okay, Shine. So they say if you want to do Shine and you've got a very good basis of ethical conduct, good morality, okay, because then your mind is calm. You know, if you know that you lied to people and you kind of cheated somebody once, the mind has the agitation in it. I never fixed that. I never applied the remedy. I never said I was sorry. So if you have very good ethical conduct, that's what they call the first higher training, ethical conduct, okay? So you need that to then get the second higher training, concentration, Shine. And then you need that to apply to the wisdom realizing emptiness. Those are considered the 3 higher trainings. Ethical conduct, good morality, concentration, wisdom. So if you want to go into retreat and get Shine, they say you can really get it in 6 months, but you need very, very good conditions. So you need a lot of practice that you've been doing. You're used to meditating, but good ethical conduct, okay? And then based on that, you need the right conditions in that Shine retreat. So a conducive place, and they give you a little list of conducive place that you want to have a quiet place. You want to have a place if people are supporting your retreat or living around you, that they're, in a sense, compassionate about the retreat. They're very happy to support you in the retreat. I found it really amazing. And I did a 6-week retreat at the base I'm living in, which was my childhood home. So I do go back to the States and I stay there occasionally, not for very long, but I do stay there a bit. Our family still has that. And it's the neighbors right around me they're not Dharma practitioners, but they're as good as, like, they're kindest people. And when I told them during COVID that I'm going to do a 6-week retreat, I'm very close with these neighbors. They couldn't do more to support me. They were very happy that I was, they're just like, well, what do you know, is there anything we can do? And they're really, like, any moment I could have called on any of them and said, you know, I had everything sorted myself with groceries, but anything I could have called and they would have just shown up. The kids show up. There's 9 kids I live around, 9 kids between the ages of 6 and like 12. And the kids are helpful. The kids are the sweetest, you know. So it's that kind of somehow very nice situation. So for me to do Shine there, you know, it's safe, you know, so I feel safe. I feel supported. There's no gunfire. There's no war going on. I can get food to the house. I can get fresh food if I need it to the house, and, you know, some ease of that. So you need, with Shine, you need certain things. And here's some other more internal things that you need. Think about it in general with your meditation practice. Okay, so think about this in general and think about it with Lojong. Training your mind, transforming your mind is, you need to have very few desires. Is that your mind? So just think about it for a moment. Is that your mind? Very few desires, okay? Mundane and gross and subtle, mundane and important, right? And you need to be very happy with what you have. Are you satisfied? Contentment. That's contentment. Are you satisfied with what you have? Think about it. Because there are people every moment, you have a beautiful flat, beautiful house, and they're constantly like, well, you know, we need to do something with the sink. That needs to be fixed. You know, homes are relentless, by the way. There's always going to be something, right? But some people just accept it. You know, they have the money for it. They just go, yep, yeah, next year we're going to get it painted. We know that's coming. It's time to get it painted. We know that. Doesn't disturb their mind. For some people, it's a constant adjustment of, and you know, after I do that, I mentioned a story maybe a couple weeks ago in here of a friend that built a large home the last few years. Large home. She lives alone. She built a large home and spent a few years getting this home built. A lot of money went into it. Great, beautiful home. She showed me pictures. I haven't been able to visit yet. She showed me pictures. I'm very happy for her. I said, fantastic, wonderful. May you live a long time there and have lots of happiness in the home. And she goes, yeah, well, I may sell it and just build something else. This is her, you know, now, again, granted, maybe it's a hobby for her that she likes doing stuff like that. And she's a Dharma person. I mean, she's got all these Dharma books stuff, but you know, the practice isn't really happening. And she says that sometimes. She'll just, and I say, what about practicing Dharma now? You're retired, you got every perfect condition, but feeling that. So think about, am I satisfied with what I have? That's an important, that piece of contentment, really helpful. Oops, this is the wrong one, but we're going to go to that in a moment. Let me go back to that sharing. Here we go. No, I got the text. Always happens, I lose the text. All right, let's see if I can find it again. It goes away. Where does it go? There it is. Should maybe learn how to use the computer. That might be helpful. I think that's the only problem. Okay. No, I don't know why it's not showing up. It's not showing up in the right form. It's on my screen. It just keeps happening to me. I don't know. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to shut everything else down. Sorry about this. Just give me a second. There it is. So back to contentment. And contentment with whatever you have. Then other ways to take happiness as a path based upon the instructions of training in bodhicitta, of course. And by, again, remembering the kindness of the three jewels, you know, but he says for the time being, this is sufficient, but incredible to, so totally separate teaching I've done here before is about bodhicitta, developing bodhicitta. So those are other classes we've done. We did a retreat on that in Lunin. There's two methods. And then remembering the kindness of the three jewels, incredible. So if you're doing a refuge course, which I think Annalise may be doing one soon or has just done one, it's part of the Discovering Buddhism's wonderful courses that she's leading. and you're doing refuge, you study a bit of the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the three jewels, or what Rinpoche calls the three rare sublime ones. It's all the same, triple gem, they all mean the same thing, three jewels of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So thinking about their kindness by studying the qualities of them is another way to increase your happiness for Dharma. And what happens is it increases your happiness for Dharma. It increases your happiness to practice Dharma because you see these qualities and you'd like to have the qualities yourself, like to develop those qualities in yourself. So it inspires you. It inspires you rather than just increasing happiness of I feel good now and I enjoy this and I love going out into the trees and riding the bicycle and eating this kind of food or whatever, just that kind of happiness. We can certainly have that, but to a degree, how much Dharma is being practiced that brings me happiness, how much happiness to practice Dharma, like that. So as in accepting suffering as the path, in the case of happiness also, you can find that the alternates, the practices of purification I've mentioned before. We do a lot of Nundro or preliminary practices like Vajrasattva meditation, mantras, prostrations to 35 confession Buddhas. All of these courses, all of these practices are designed to either help us purify negativities or accumulate merit, accumulate the conditions you need to practice or to want to practice. And then here it says, in a solitary place, in a solitary place. So you can do Nundro, which are preliminary practices. We have sets of them you can do. There's 9 technically in our tradition, 9 different types of practices. So there's a variety of things. Some people like this one, they like doing this one. There's people that are artistic, you make plaster images of Buddhas called tsatsas, like that. It seems to purify the earth element in the body. You can offer water bowls, set those up, and do a series of that with a visualization, right? That seems to bring prosperity to you, purifies the water element in your body. Very, very helpful practices. Prostration, some people are athletic, they want to do prostrations, full length prostrations with a certain visualization and recitation, incredibly purifying. Some people want to sit down, Vajrasattva practice. They want to recite that. I do it every night, short version every night, like that. Some people say, well, I'm going to eventually do the retreat. Great, incredibly purifying. Vajrasattva practice. And then we have some other practices like that, very, very helpful. So that's a lot of what we're doing on this path. Purifying, accumulate the conditions. Okay, so in a solitary place. So if you get a chance, think about your future. Can I set it up? I'm gonna do this the right way. Can I set up my life? Think about it realistically. Can I set up my life to start with short retreats, a weekend city retreat? Great. We just had a couple of retreats like that this month. Wonderful. Then we're going to be in Lunin, right? Or this next weekend, I'll be in France leading a retreat. Then we'll be in Lunin for people that are here. Great. You come and you get away from your house, come to another place, do retreat. Come to each session, make sure, like one of the things I do when I'm on a group retreat, especially my own solo retreats, but when I'm in a group retreat, one commitment I have to myself is I'm going to go to every session. I just feel like it's the discipline. Keep the discipline of it. Because otherwise you get lazy. You go, well, I skipped the last session. I don't feel like going. And that becomes a habit. And that creates obstructions to your being able to do retreat. Not leaving the retreat early. Some people suddenly they go, oh, I had enough. Sunday morning, I'm going to go. Then you create obstacles to always having your retreat interrupted, never being able to finish. Creates things like that. Karma is very subtle, but that's what happens. Okay. So these are short. And then maybe you set up a thing and you go, I want to try to do a week. Then maybe longer, and structure your life. Ask your boss for, time off without pay or something. I know a lot of people that have done it. I took some breaks in between jobs, realize this is what I wanted to do. This seemed to be more important to a degree. So you have to figure out what are your priorities in life. So there's no right or wrong about it. It's just, what do you feel comfortable with? What will work? You might have family, you might have a partner. What will work? Can you get some time like that? And even partners. I remember my last partner before I got ordained. We were working together at a center for some years, and I saw an opportunity. I really wanted to do this Vajrasattva retreat some years ago. And I wanted to do it. And then I checked with my teacher, I checked with Rinpoche to check because I was running a center, you know, it was a lot of responsibility. But I thought maybe I'll check with Rinpoche because maybe it's not the best thing to do. And Rinpoche said, great idea. That was Rinpoche, great idea. So it also confirmed, because we're here to develop our own wisdom. Okay, and practicing Lojong and training, we have to develop our own wisdom. You can't be dependent constantly on the teacher, and they want you to get free to understand, develop your own wisdom, compassion, skillful means. So I start directing my path, but I would check in. And it was nice to hear when he'd say, great idea, for either the center, an idea I had about the center, or my own practice. It wasn't that I was any special being, but you get a sense. I thought I wanted to, this was something virtuous I wanted to do. But why do I want to do it? It's a deep purification practice. Why? I needed to clean my mind. I knew that. I had habits I didn't like, habits I didn't feel like I can control. So I do a little bit of purification every day. I was also running a center. If I had the right attitude about it, a lot of purification could be. But I made mistakes all the time. I'm a human being. I didn't know what to do. It's half the time and then I'd get upset and I this and whatever. So then I said, oh, Vajrasattva, I heard about that retreat. I want to. So then then I have the sign off from Rinpoche. I have to make sure it works for the job. Can I take a leave of absence? I've been there a while. I talked to my boyfriend. What if I went for a few months? He was so supportive. Your partners, it's nice to do that. He was very supportive. I think he just was happy to get rid of me a few months, but no, he was really supportive. Bought me an incredible sleeping bag. Or he's like, you want to go along? I'm going to get you new sleeping bag. And so nice to do that. So helpful. He was so helpful. And then I worked it out with the community. So you can do that, not just with a Dharma job. You can set it up. I know there are people that set it up in their own lives. They check with their partner, even people that had kids. Harder when you have young kids. But there's a woman that when I was running the center in Vermont in the United States, very remote area, she had 3 young kids. She was a mother of 3 young kids, single mother. And she realized the value. She found our center. She came once in a while. I met her kids. They're really cute. And she found the value if she could get to a weekend retreat. And she did it like once every 2 months. She came and she got somebody to watch her kids, set it up. And she came once every 2 months. She came for a weekend retreat. And she said, this is my sanity. She goes, I realize how helpful it is for my household that I come and do this. So they all want me to do it. They're happy I do it. They're happy when I get home. They're happy, and I found out I have support to do that. I thought it was brilliant. I thought she was amazing. So people that always say, I know there's people I can't. We just block it off ourselves. You really can. So you have to think about that. Think about a little bit, turning up that volume on your practice. Yay, there's the text. Okay. By means of ultimate truth, and again, you'll understand happiness taken as the path, by means of the ultimate truth, by understanding emptiness, the previous case, like what we talked about in transforming suffering we were talking about. Okay, so when you're experiencing happiness, it's the same. Ultimate truth means poking it with emptiness, analyzing with emptiness, thinking about emptiness. You're having the nice meal, all the buffets laid out. The food is completely empty of any inherent nature. Nothing concretely there to grasp onto about the pizza. It might look like that, the bubbling cheese, whatever. And, we have certain things we gravitate to. You go out and there might be suddenly this morning I woke up and the sun's pouring in the window and it looks like another lovely day and we're in a nice season. And how will it be for you at the end of November? The light is going, the sun is setting really early. It's very dark, cold, rainy, windy. That's Amsterdam. That's Amsterdam late November or January or February. I know what it's like when I go back to the States. It'll be October, beautiful season where I live, right? And then December will come and January will come. It was freezing cold last winter. One of the coldest winters I remember. I came in late January, I came back, right? It was really, really cold. So what's that like? It's a different sun, different texture outside, So again, it's completely empty. It's just seasonal, these seasonal things. So I could get up and say, oh, the sun pouring in the window and the sky is blue. And there's some people that don't like that. It's relative. There's some people that see it and they like rainy days. And there's other people that don't like rainy days. You know, so it's all relative, whatever you're experiencing. You know, you get up one day and there's a pain in your body. You slept funny. Your neck's a bit, you know, again, nothing inherently concretely there of pain in the body, pain in your side, pain in your neck. Yeah, just karmic seed popping, karmic seed arising right now. That's all that's happening, right? Coming from my mind. Nothing inherent to solidify around it. My mind is imputing pain in my side. It's labeling that, it's putting that onto this, and it's just, you know what it is? It's a sensation. Okay, you could say it's a sensation that causes discomfort. I could label it like that. It's a sensation that's a valid basis of designation. And my mind labels discomfort on it or pain. And then it comes into being like that. But if you want to go back for a moment, it's a sensation first. You know, my right side is experiencing something different than my left side, or the right side of my neck to the left side of my neck. So break things down. Take a few steps back, especially when you're having a very strong emotional reaction to something, either through attachment, sweeping through, or through aversion. Check your mind in those moments, especially those moments. Those are the most valuable ones to work with Lojong. You know, ask yourself, so if it's unfolding in the moment, let me turn this off for a moment. If it's unfolding in the moment and you suddenly are able to catch just huge discomfort arising in your mind, okay, good enough, good enough. What happens? It's the boss. It's your partner just said something you don't like. The neighbor just said something you're really upset about, or they're doing something you can't imagine. Somebody cuts in front of you, the bicycle. And, you know, just watch your mind reacting, responding. Sometimes in the moment, you don't know what to do or respond. You can't catch it. Can't control your mind. That's okay. But at least be mindful. Okay. And as one of my friends would say, you're having a klesha attack. Okay. Klesha means delusion in Sanskrit. Klesha is a Sanskrit word that means delusion or afflictive emotion. So use it with a little bit of humor. I'll give you an example. We were having a meeting at our center, one of the centers I was running, and our community, we met. Can you imagine, like I went through almost 9 years of, we had meetings every single week. I had a staff meeting every single week, almost every week, and one evening a week, a community meeting every week of my life. It was a meeting, and I hate meetings. So it was like, and again, I could just say, I hate meetings. So I'm solidifying the meeting. What's a meeting? It's just a few people that, and often like-minded people trying to help a center, talking together. But you know how people feel about meetings. You impute something, I hate meetings. People go, I hate meetings. But every week of my life, unless I took, you know, went to see my parents, then I had meetings with them, but mainly I could escape these meetings. But we would meet as a staff, we would meet as a community. It was fantastic, actually, because it kept the harmony. We had a lot of harmony at that center, as we discussed. We tried to, you know, we had different opinions, we tried to discuss. So one meeting, I'm the director, so I had made some decisions. I usually would ask everybody, you know, we'd sometimes vote. But one decision, I just was pressed and I had to make the decision. And one like elder of the community didn't like it at all, was very upset with me. And she stood up, and she's not usually like, but she suddenly stood up in the middle of dinner and she really started yelling at me across the room. It was very unusual for her. She's a dear friend of mine. And right in the middle of it, we would call it a tirade. She just went off on me. She stopped and she caught herself and she said, I'm so sorry, I'm having a klesha attack right now. Like she, you know, you can do that when you're practitioners. And we all laughed and she goes, oh my God, I'm just having a klesha attack. Good enough when you're there. But then what you do is you come back to your practice. You have to set up that practice, please. So she came back to, you know, come back to your cushion and you go, what happened today? That sucked. Oh my goodness. I had no control of my mind. Just as you're sitting, you're sitting the first 5-10 minutes, let it just sift out. Don't lay a trip on yourself. You just watch, follow the breath, and let all those emotional reactionary thoughts settle down or just blow away like bubbles. So I'm just watching going, wow, God, I was awful today. I breathe in, I breathe out. I'm just a human being. So slowly let that nice sitting practice, you just let it go. You just try to, and you know what? You try to just be in meditation. Be. Just let yourself be for a moment. Let go. We're always doing. We're always doing. So don't even worry about that. I'm doing the inhalation. I'm doing the exhalation. I'm doing the mindfulness of the breath and let that go and just be. It's happening normally. Just let all that stuff go. That's often my first 5 or 10 minutes. Usually it's just, here I am, just like that. Good enough. Okay. And then you start to analyze. Mine's a little calmer, spacious. And then you go in and go, what happened? What was I expecting? What was my motivation? If it involves somebody else, what was their motivation? What did I think? Did I forget they were a human being too? I don't really know them, but all I know is this is my mind. I'm trying to control my mind, transform my mind, Lojong, mind training. Okay, what are some of the antidotes I remember to this? Then you start applying the antidotes. We try. And bigger than that is there's no inherently evil thing out there of that or this or whatever I was grasping onto or whatever I needed to have happen, right? It's not happening, all coming from my mind, result of my karma. If it is happening, all coming from my mind, a result of my karma. And there's no point getting any more attached to it because the next moment it's changing, it's impermanent, it will pass away and be something else. I don't need to cling, but can this be useful in my Dharma practice? That's what I have to ask myself. That's what this text is saying. Can I roll something in? Can I learn something here that I can use in my Dharma practice? So I can be kinder to somebody? Tomorrow when I see the person I was really afflicted with today, can I apologize to them? Can I tell them I appreciate something about them genuinely? Can I do a better job? Slowly, that's what we do. Does that make sense? Any questions? So I'm going to go to the 8 verses. I want to talk a little bit more about that. And that's pretty much this what I wanted to say a little bit about this. And it also, just to finish, we've read this text once before, but and here this is talking about the balance. When I said you use the suffering and happiness as alternates because sometimes you're suffering. So you can't go on, I can only really practice Dharma when I'm happy. That won't work. And really, when we really start practicing is when we're suffering. So when we're happy, then we're lazy. Okay. So the text goes on here. I'll just show you for a moment. When you're suffering, if you cannot practice Dharma by means of that sorrow, and when you're happy, if you cannot practice Dharma because of attachment to the happiness, then it's impossible for a chance to practice Dharma to present itself. Okay, so if you practice Dharma, you have to understand this. He says there's nothing more essential than this understanding. Okay, so find that balance and notice yourself. Okay, here comes suffering, or I'm uncomfortable now. How can I use it in my Dharma practice? What's beneficial about this for Dharma practice? And go back to that A to G, all those points we already went through in relative truth, right? Now I'm happy. What's beneficial about this for Dharma practice? Now I'm feeling good. My body's functional like this. Some people go through and you'll have this where you have something wrong with your body. I'm sure this has happened to some of You have something wrong with your body, something that you have to kind of check with the doctor. And then there's a little bit of cause or concern. So that starts to come up a little bit. And then if it's something that appears a little bit more serious, more cause for concern comes up. Some people worry. And then they have to maybe go to the doctor, get a test, check, and it sometimes it goes on for a little while, and sometimes you find out pretty quickly. And people make deals. You know the thing about the deal? If this turns out to be benign, then I'm going to do my practice. I'm going to get to this practice I said I was going to do. Then I'm going to read the book that I said I would read. Then it's benign and there's nothing wrong with us. And what are you doing? You doing your practice? Doing it anymore? Often we forget. Suddenly that emergency is out of the way. And then if it ends up being something really bad, which I hope that doesn't happen to you, if it ends up being something really bad, then you're consumed with that. No time to practice. And sometimes the treatments for things take all your energy. All your energy. So we have to find that balance. So when you are, people can see. So if you have this practice, whatever kind of place you stay in, whether in solitude, whether in a city, whatever kind of people you associate with, good or bad, whatever comes, riches or poverty, happiness or sorrow, whatever speech you hear, praise or blame, disparagement, good or bad, you will not be afraid that it will harm you. This is like, and they say, he calls this lion-like yoga. Think of the fearless, lions have no fear. They're the king of the jungle, right? Very few things attack lions, especially when they're younger, it's different when they're old. Lion-like yoga. So just think about the undisturbed mind that you have with this kind of Lojong. Doesn't matter. Whatever you do, suffering comes, you're practicing. Happiness comes, I'm practicing. Whoever appears, whatever they're doing with the wall, whatever kind of neighbor, mind's undisturbed. We know people like that, unfettered. So whatever you do, he goes on, your mind will be happy and relaxed. That's what we want. That's what we want. Your nature will be pure and ultimately accomplished. And he talks about even if you're living in an impure land, physically you're living, your mind will enjoy the splendor of unimaginable bliss. Can you imagine? Like the Bodhisattvas in the Pure Land. Pure Land is like, it's not a God realm, but it's a place that's been described to me as every conducive condition to practice Dharma. Pure Land, every perfect condition to practice Dharma. So your mind will enjoy this unimaginable bliss you have there. And so here it says, Kadampa Lama's happiness should be brought under control and suffering ended. Like that. If you're lonely, it will be the companion of sorrow. If you're sick, it will nurse you. So you're using all those conditions, happiness or suffering. Happiness or suffering. And the last, these are the last, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say about it. And you can read the rest of the beautiful text, right? And then he says, just talk about the end of that. And then I think Rinpoche added, using suffering to train in Guru devotion. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when a problem happens, think, this is the blessing of the Guru purifying me by finishing my negative karmas, training my mind in the Mahayana path, Mahayana thought transformation. Again, in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings of sentient beings. So this is giving me the opportunity to develop my mind. So Rinpoche says you can always see it as an aspect of the Guru, meaning absolute Guru. Absolute Guru is the highest level of your inner voice, what you finally develop into a Buddha from your Buddha nature. Absolute Guru, what they call in Tantra, the truth body of the Buddha, Dharmakaya. So when you ever practice Tantra, then you can get into that and think about that. But that's really what we mean by Guru. The physical manifestation of an exterior teacher is simply a reminder of that. reminder of that. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche loves to talk about Guru devotion, love to talk about it to train. So we're really saying all of this could be a manifestation of that, of Guru, of absolute Guru, that high level of realization. Okay, the 8 verses. I just want to go on a little bit before we finish. So please, what you could do, the text isn't long. The taking suffering and happiness as a path to enlightenment. It's not a long text. Once in a while, bring it out and read it and just refresh your mind and think about those practices of, you know, right now the suffering's going on in my life. Can I use it to counter my pride? Can I use it to remind myself about the nature of samsara and renounce samsara more? Can I use it to generate compassion? Can I use it to take refuge? And whatever things are, and think about emptiness, of course, but it's very nice text because it's not that long. So I want to talk a little bit about the 8 verses. Which we started, but I want to, and we were talking a lot before about verse 5. And this was just one I combined with, it's a very nice practice to do with Chin Rasig, the 1,000-arm Chin Rasig, that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is said to be an emanation of. This is just a drawing of 1,000-arm Buddha. So you can see he's got 1,000 arms. Every hand has an eye. So he sees all the different realms, all the different heads to see all the different beings to help. And there's a whole description of him of Avalokiteshvara in Sanskrit, Chin Rasig in Tibetan, the one who looks over the world and sees everyone in it. And it's a beautiful story too, because he's the Buddha of infinite compassion, as most of you know. He also at one point, apparently looking out over the sentient being realms, was overwhelmed and started crying. And they're also said that that's why his head just split. He was just totally freaked out and his head split into all these different manifestations to try to help. And Tara sprang out of one of his tears. So Tara is a female representation of the enlightened consciousness. We have representations of her in the room. Green Tara, emerald green goddess there. We have a Tara with all the 21 Taras around her in a picture like that. So she exists in 21 different ways in which she's the green Tara, the emerald green one, is a very active manifestation of enlightenment. So she has her left leg drawn in to show she's controlling her sexual desire. And her right leg is extended out a little because she's an active emanation of ready to jump up and serve all living beings. And that's Tara. So she came and said to him, don't worry, I'm your girl, I'm gonna help, like that. So they're connected in a way. And so the 8 verses works very nicely with this. And this is its own little sadhana that we're gonna do in some of the retreats I'm gonna lead. But with these 8 verses, they fit right in here. I just wanna read through these before we finish. We've talked about some of these. With the heartfelt desire, and there's different versions of this, but with the heartfelt desire and determination to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all living beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, for accomplishing the supreme goal, may I cherish them and hold them dear. So Rinpoche even says, I hold them as dear as precious beings. Do we hold all living beings like that? So this is a way to really think about, especially the most difficult ones, especially the most difficult beings on the planet in your life. Start with somebody personal to you in your life. Okay, so you have an issue with your boss, you have an issue with your neighbor, you have an issue with some political person it's better to make it personal, better to think about it personally. Yeah. And what's happening is they're showing, as I mentioned before, they're showing you your mind. They're showing you your mind. All the people you like who are easy, they don't show you your mind like that. You don't have to work as hard. But this person pokes you and it shows you the work you need to do in your mind. You're not clean yet, not totally finished. So work with them and apply the antidotes as well. They are suffering living being just like you. They're muddling along just like you. Again, We may not know their mind, we may not have that level of realization. Okay. But imagine human beings make mistakes. What was I expecting them to do? What was I not accepting of them? Not accepting that this is the way they are. Maybe I wasn't communicating clearly. This is karma coming from my mind. I created this. There's no inherently existent negative person out there. These are all the antidotes you would apply over and over. But can you actually start to see them as precious? Because I need this person. Okay. So you actually need that person to get enlightened. So Rinpoche goes on over and over in other teachings. Buddhists depend, he says over and over, on sentient beings to get enlightened. Buddhists relied on sentient beings to get enlightened. How does that work? Okay. So Buddhists come from bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas are high Buddhist saints in a sense. So if you attain bodhicitta, and that means that in your mind, every moment is designed to get enlightened, to benefit all living beings. Every moment's cherishing others more than yourself. Okay, that's the life of a bodhisattva. That's all they're doing. They're not Buddhas yet necessarily, but very high level. There's different levels of achieving bodhicitta. Different grounds, bodhicitta bhumis, they call them, levels like that you progress through with more and more and more realization. Okay. So Buddhists they come from bodhisattvas. So bodhisattvas depend on sentient beings because that's their whole purpose for being, is cherishing others more than yourselves. So without sentient beings, they can't get enlightened. So Buddhas need us to get enlightened. Bodhisattvas need us to get enlightened. That's how valuable every living being is in your life. So if you can see them like that, unbelievable, especially the difficult ones. So you start really cherishing them. You start really realizing this is my enlightenment are based on these beings. Can't do it without them. It's impossible. It's impossible. Let me go back to my text. Not that one. Oh, and here's another, well, this is how more it's been updated. And Rinpoche says, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit for all sentient beings, or more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I hold them more dear at all times. So that's a updated version Rinpoche add. And I used to say I shall hold them dear at all times, but Rinpoche took the shall out. He said it's active. I hold them dear. You're doing it now. Hold them most dear at all times. Number two, second one. I'll just read these one. When in the company of others, excuse me. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. Okay, this is not that you're a masochist, and this is not that you're lowly and courting low self-esteem at all. It's just humbling myself. So, and this cuts pride. So if you're an arrogant person, this is one you'd want to focus on. This is one you'd want to focus on. So once again, when in the company of others, I always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. So it's once again the cherishing of the others, but through an avenue of like, you know, and first of all, it starts to equalize yourself with others. There are people that feel they're better than others. So sometimes if we even walk by a homeless person, you might think a little bit like, well, I mean, we feel sorry, but you might also think like, oh, I'm not like that. I'm better. What if I really think this person's incredible and incredibly dear to me? In fact, and they also give me an opportunity to practice generosity, to actually see them there on the street. So many beings less fortunate than us, you know, struggling along, you know. And I remember there was a woman I mentioned, she came to our center, very, very difficult woman. And our staff used to, when we knew the retreat was coming and she had signed up, and then we'd have a staff meeting every week, and then they'd say, and guess who's coming? And they kind of did it as a joke. And in some ways, maybe it's not really fair that we were joking about her. You know, it wasn't so kind. But mainly wanted to make sure we were ready for her to support, because she was very challenging. And then at one point myself, and I used to be really challenged by her, and I thought, we were discussing as staff too, what was it like to be her? You know, and I don't think a lot of times she was even aware of what it was like, what she was like to, you know, it was like continual barrage of questions that she would never listen to you. Like you'd answer the question, she'd never, and she just asked the question again and again, and the next day again and again. And it wasn't dementia. It was just the way and she was so difficult and interrupting, and always had to be a special case at the center and need all these things that were completely, you know, something we couldn't offer, things like, it was just and people I saw at other centers, they'd avoid her. And then slowly I started to think, like, what was it like to be her? You know, and in some ways we weren't that different. And, you know, I mean, I'm not so as demanding as that, but thinking like I'm muddling along in something else in life that I find challenging, that, you know, it was, so I somehow really came to, a number of us really came to care for her and really started liking her and got on much better. And it really changed the whole dynamic with her. So seeing these people are really, you know, she started, when I heard she was coming, sometimes I'd be like, okay, good. We're really gonna have some work to do. This is great. And that we could provide a place for her to come and do retreat. It's really helpful. So think about those beings that think I'm really no better than her, to think that I'm any better. Doesn't exist like that. Number 3. Okay, this is interesting, and I love how it starts with this word, vigilant. Vigilant, okay? The moment a delusion appears in my mind. Are you ready for this? Endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Again, vigilant. The moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So we have delusions happen all the time, all day long. You want this, you're attached to this, don't have a direct perception of emptiness overall. So everything is tainted that I'm seeing and experiencing. I'm not countering it. First of all, I'm not even vigilant. I'm not even mindful. That's the beginning. Can I at least watch? And, you know, watching your mind in its level of confusion and ignorance, that's okay. Like, at least you're being mindful and realizing, like, sometimes I'll know I'll be at a meeting or something's going on and I'll just think, there's so much grasping in my mind right now. Or I'm like, I can't believe what this person's saying. I'm so averted to what, like, something, who do they think they're, whatever comes up in your mind. So first of all, the beginning is the mindfulness, the vigilance. Like, wow. And sometimes they're just little mundane delusions. Okay, well, there's a little bit of irritation, or there's a little, you know, like, so you're just there in the beginning, good enough, okay? But then can you add the antidote? Okay, because I love that line about endangering myself and others. That's what delusion does. Endangers you and somebody else. So first of all, I don't want to be any more problem for anybody else. That's clear. Nobody really wants to, but I'm also endangering myself because I'm creating another habit of that in my mind again and again and again. We try our best. Try our best. What you can do is you've got 8 of these verses. So it's really nice to like lay out the month. Lay out the month sometimes. And you just, you know, take 2 a week or something. 2 a week, and that's what you really work on. You put them on your refrigerator, 2 a week. Here's our exercises, what we're doing today. Have it come up on your devices. That's what, so at least you go in and you think about it a little bit, at least a little bit. You're not going to think about it all day for the most part, but it's still there. I'm still working on it. Number 4, whenever I see beings that are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I found a precious treasure. This is hard, and this goes back to number 1 about precious beings, and the other one about you see somebody that I'm depending on them for my enlightenment. Okay, so if you run into somebody, it's part of my notes and commentary, by nature, they're very cruel. Sometimes we meet people like that. By nature, they're rough, they're nasty, they're unpleasant. Okay, our usual reaction is we want to avoid them as much as we can. Okay, and in some situations, our loving concern for others can sometimes decrease. I get so rattled by this person, I stop thinking about others, and we start back to the self-cherishing. Oh, I don't want this person in my space, okay? But instead of allowing our love for others to weaken by thinking what an evil person they are, what an evil person this person is, can you see them as a special object of love and compassion? And cherish them as if you found a precious treasure. It's a hard one. It's really hard. But think about also, so I think about some of the world leaders, I've mentioned this before. Some of them are really trying people on the planet, really trying people's patience, and seem to be killing a lot of people. It's just really hard to get your mind around. I mean, it's so sad. But then I think about what they're creating for themselves by making these decisions, by like ruling in a totalitarian regime, you know, some kind of really, something that we might label evil. And then I think, how can we not have compassion? They're completely lost, completely lost. No Dharma appearing. Buddha nature there, because they have a mind. That's what Buddhism says. They have Buddha nature, okay? But so obscured. So obscured. What kind of suffering are they going to go through? So Buddhism would say, this is a hard one. The Gazans, whoever's affected, I mean, they all have to be affected if they're living there. Some people more than others, I'm sure. People that lost all their families, people, all the orphans, you know, and Buddhism would say, you know, the cause was in their mind to experience that. So maybe they collectively were in an army that inflicted this on someone else. People said it about the Holocaust. The Tibetans said it. His Holiness said it about the Tibetans. It's hard to swallow. But His Holiness said, we lost our country because we invaded China in like the 8th century or something. Okay. So if you go back to karma courses, comes from your mind, the cause is in your mind. It's hard to swallow, but, or think about, where does the suffering come from? Some separate creator that's doing it to you. But again, if it's based on that, and these people are inflicting this on others, cruelty, all the horror and things, if you start to develop some compassion for them here, it's good for your mind. It's good for your mind. What the one thing does, it stops you from creating more hatred and anger in your heart and mind. It can reduce that for you. That creates another habit of that only for you. Okay. But then you spew it out to other people around you. I hate him. How horrible. I've been at these, you know, group, just people meet, you know, friends of mine getting together, and then somebody suddenly voices an opinion and all these people launch in. He's horrible. And then you start spewing that on somebody else. They might not have felt that way, but now they have to hear my opinion, my negative opinion. But if you can have compassion, you just sit there quietly and just go, wow, creating so much suffering for themselves. Like, I wish that wouldn't happen. And it's good for your heart and mind. We try. We try. So difficult. The famous number 5, we've discussed a bit. When out of envy, others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. We've talked about this before of, can you cut? It cuts pride, but the one thing it does is it diffuses, it dismantles the fueling, the disagreement that you're having. You know, because as soon as you get your side, well, wait, you know, I didn't do anything wrong. So immediately the other person postures back. If you just apologize sometimes, the whole situation goes away. They're much more willing to listen to you, much more willing to, you know, if you sincerely apologize, even if you don't think you did anything wrong, it's a huge space of mind. Totally dismantling, totally, you know, defueling, in a sense, all the disagreements like that. Number 6, when somebody whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So these are all very much designed, very much the same people. Did I have an outrageous expectation for this person? Sometimes. Am I not really seeing them for who they are and allowing them to just be, this is who they are? I'm limited. I'm a limited person. Maybe they are. No, I'm expecting, you have people that put stuff on you. They think you're supposed to be better than you're like, excuse me, I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I remember we had one center I was running in the summer. Every summer we had a work study program. We had 5 to 10 people come live with us for 2 to 3 months. They got a whole teaching of the philosophy of our philosophy of the Lam. They got a whole roll out of that in 2 to 3 months. They helped to serve. They had work periods at the center in the mornings. So they learned how to do water bowls. They learned all these different practices. They cooked with us. And then we had special programs, weekend programs that they could participate in. And they got this whole well-rounded program. And we also had entertainment. We'd take them out, kayaking and different things. We had a community day and all kinds of wonderful things. We had a family camp. And so these people, a lot of college age people would come, university age, but sometimes we had other people that came, retired, they wanted to spend a few months and get a little bit more intensive Dharma practice. We had wonderful, I met so many wonderful people through that program. We did it at a couple centers in the summers. And so one young woman came for the summer. She stayed with us. She became a really good friend. And people impute things on monastics, monks or nuns, like they think we're holy. I'm not holy, by the way. I'm just an ordinary person, but I am dressed up, I guess, and I do have ordination vows that I try to keep, but I'm not a holy person. So she came and she goes, oh, when I met you, she goes, when I met you, Venerable, she's so sweet. She goes, I thought you were clairvoyant. She thought I could read minds. Like she just imputed. I was like, what was that like? So it was so funny. She thought I could read her mind and read her thoughts. Okay. So we're going to see people as the holy guru, but think about what we are imputing, sometimes negative stuff on people. Are you seeing people for how they really are? And are you letting people change? That's another thing. We have people in our lives, they've really messed up, or, families do this. They don't allow you to change. You have to be that, you have to fill that role and be that person. It's really interesting. So if you want to change and you're trying to be better and things like this, they don't really want you to get into that mode yet. But think about somebody you've invested time in. You spent time, somebody I've benefited, that I had great hopes. And this is the kind of thing where somebody in my life, very close for some years, would always say, well, she never thanked you, or she never thanked me, like they're expecting that. It's like, can you just offer, and then realize if they throw it back in my face, sometimes the guru does that. Just to help you purify, just to show you a lesson, just to teach you something. So instead of me tussling with them, can I see them as my precious teacher? Easier, better for the mind, more peaceful. You have to check your mind, each of these things that you try. So much more peaceful for your mind. Number 7, in short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. And so these 7 verses of the 8 are really dealing with the method side of the path, bodhicitta. The method side of the path is always very much cherishing others more than myself, using all that work with them to transform my mind, to, again, commit myself to get enlightened for the benefit of living beings, all the cherishing, real bodhisattva path, bodhicitta. Again, in short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mother sentient beings. It means I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. It's also talking about Tonglen here, taking their suffering. It's very high level practice, Tonglen, a meditation that we'll do in Lunin. Taking the suffering, visualizing through, we've done this before in here, visualizing either light rays that represent suffering, images, words, and then using it to chip away at my self-cherishing. And then from a place of deeper spaciousness, happiness, I offer all my goodness, happiness, joy, every beautiful experience I've had, and offer it to all these beings like that to benefit them. And then you have to check your mind. How does that feel? We don't want to take suffering and give away our happiness. but it is so much the cause of your happiness, peace and happiness. So you get so much bliss in your mind, really. And if that's all that you can do and train in this life, when you're dying, when you're actively dying, if that comes up in your mind, Tonglen, you know, because I'm dying anyway, because I have this disease, or because I have old age, or because I can't move, because I'm in pain. So many beings on the planet are experiencing this. Worst. Let me just imagine taking that on for them, because I'm already experiencing it. Let them be free of it. Let it chip away at my self-cherishing, and let me offer them all the wonderful experiences I've had, great life I've had. I give it to them. You die in that moment, I think no problem. No problem. So those 7 all focused on the method side, bodhicitta, and then 8 is focused on emptiness. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. Okay, so undefiled, I don't want to get under the influence, which we're under a lot of the 8 worldly dharmas. 8 worldly dharmas again are, what do we remember? 8 worldly dharmas. Anybody remember?
Praise and
Blame. So the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
pair, it's 4 pairs of situations we're manipulated by all the time. Second pair is praise and blame. What's often the first ones? What do you
Pain
remember?
and pleasure.
Wait, say that again.
Pain and
Pain and
Pain and
pleasure. Thank
pleasure.
you. Pain and pleasure. Thank you. And so what literally in Tibetan, they'll say, being happy when I feel pleasure, being unhappy when I feel pain or discomfort. Being happy. And so I'm sorry, praise and blame, we often will put in the third pair. Second pair, anybody remember?
gain and loss.
Gain and loss. Yeah, so we'd say, I'm happy when I get something, unhappy when I lose something or don't get something. And then literally Tibetan, the third praise and blame would be happy when I hear pleasant sounds about me, unhappy when I hear unpleasant words or sounds about me. And the fourth is fame and dishonor. Or I'm happy when I have a good reputation. I'm unhappy when I have a bad reputation. 8 worldly dharmas. So again, undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly dharmas. Superstitions is in here. It's a hallucination. They don't exist that way. You know, it's just habit in our mind. It's just habit in our mind, like that. So again, you may experience pain and have that on one level conventionally, yes, but it's completely empty of any concretely inherently pain-ness, like that, or discomfort-ness, like that. See, superstitions may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, again, that's why they're superstitions, be released from the bondage of attachment. And it's not just attachment, but it's ignorance and pain and fear and suffering and depression and anxiety and hatred and all those things. So are there any questions? I'm just going to conclude there, but any particular things in general about Lojong or helpful to some degree? Anyway, try to practice, please. Try to use it. You can read these over and over. I know people that read the 8 verses every day. They just like it in there, you know, you can build it into certain things every other day or something. It comes in some of the longer practices I do. There's alternate ones. And so sometimes I'll read that every few days, the 8 verses, just to remind myself. It's very, very powerful. Print it out, stick it on your refrigerator. I know people that have things like that on, you know, prominent places in their house so that it reminds them. Rinpoche had a thing. This is something, one of the centers did this. I wanted to print out the pictures to put them around my house, but Rinpoche has a, it's kind of bodhisattva exercises. I forget what they called it, bodhicitta something. And what he does, he has a whole list of things. So when you stand up, you think of one thing. I'm bringing all sentient beings out of the lower realms. When I close a door, I'm closing it. Like every single thing you're doing, Rinpoche had a thing that he wanted it to be done this way. So one center printed them out with nice little like sky backgrounds and put one at the door and one here and one at the, so that you like, what he's trying to do is make it easier for us so that every mundane activity could be focused as well. And at least it leaves an imprint in the mind of something positive. So some people like that, and they chose, and it's a little couple pages you can print out. Bodhicitta mindfulness, that's what it is. Bodhicitta mindfulness, so that you could just look at them and learn a few when you lie down in bed at night, when you get up from bed in the morning, when you and just take one a day or one a week and just work on that. See what effect that has on your mind. There's all kinds of little things Rinpoche is trying to make it easier for us. Thank you so much. So I'm going to stop there, but let's try to do the best we can. Thank you so much for joining, for coming in person, for coming online,
Thank you
for
very
giving
much.
it your best shot. And we're going to conclude with our dedication prayers. I hope some of you can come to Lunin in a couple of weekends. And I might see some of you in France. And Lizette, please.
Yes, I just wanted to so thank you for this. It puts suffering in such a different, instead of thinking of suffering every single time and start doing it in your mind, where's this coming from? And it's all happening to me, to a totally different perspective. So thank you so much for that. And I promised Lars from Laksam something, is that I wouldn't only say, as you already said, there's going to be a weekend on Lojong with a lot of meditation and also the sadhana around the 1,000-arm Chanrezik. There's also going to be a weekend which you can also join online in Zurich, led by you, around transforming negative emotions. I promised Lars I would say that. So
Thank you. And I keep meaning to say
any-
that also, that I will be in Switzerland and for some people, and I know that because he's been joining some of our courses with his group. And so I will be in a couple places in Switzerland. Exactly. Yes. Thank you for saying that. And if some people are interested, late August, beginning September, there is another short retreat in Northern England at Land of Joy. If you've ever wanted to see Land of Joy, it is one of the premier retreat centers in England. So the English centers there's a number of centers there, and I often teach at some of the centers. And they finally, some years ago, decided, let's get a retreat center together so we can do retreat. And it just came together where I think a nun died and left some money, and then they bought this beautiful place. And I've been leading some things up there for some years and once in a while. And so I'll be up there late August, beginning September for about 5 days. So you can look at that as well. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank Lizette, Sylvie, all the people, Nana, thank you so much for helping here tonight. All the people that helped make this possible. And for all of you joining, thank you so much. It's been lovely to meet new people, to see some other people I've met before. It's wonderful. And let's dedicate whatever positive energy we've created. Can we use our lives well, our minds well, to really open our minds and hearts and keep working to transform the different situations that arise in our minds, that keep our minds away from comfort, that disturb our minds. That's what has to be transformed. So let's just do our best. Try to use whatever you can that you've heard from the course. Can we use it and invest it in our path to enlightenment quickly, so we can benefit all living beings as much as we can? And for all the beings around the planet who are suffering, there are many right now, may we have created this pocket here of peace that will ripple out to them somehow and help transform their situation into something bright and peaceful like that. Let me just go back to our prayers. Just find them, what I did with them. Feel free, we can read together. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings. May it especially cause the essence of perfect, pure Losang Drakma's teachings to shine forever. Short mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Yedam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niratayami. Gewadi Nyoduda Lama Sange Drugyone Drowa Chikyang Maluha Dei Shala Uparsho Jangju Sencho Rinpoche Mage Panam Ge Gyurchik Ke Panyam Pame Payi Gone Gondu Belwarsho. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas, numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization, may be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I promise to pray, all those whose names have been given to me, may be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living, those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. And with emptiness, thinking about emptiness, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones in 3 times in order to have good conduct. And for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And we'll do the swift return prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, And for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you so much. And please have a good evening, rest of your evening. I hope we meet again.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you very much.
Did I
Please
understand
enjoy.
correctly? You will be teaching in Zurich?
Yes, I'll be in Zurich. I'll be there for Sakadawa. So we have a special program that night for the big holiday of commemoration of Buddha's birth, death, and enlightenment, parinirvana. And that is the 11th, June 11th to the 16th. I'm teaching there, and the 17th and 18th teaching in Bern, Switzerland. And then from there, I go into England, and I'll be teaching at some centers around England and doing some retreat like that. Doing some retreat so I have more energy to renew myself for all of you to have more energy to teach. I need to do some work on my mind all the time, all the time. So thank you so much. And Kia, look forward, hoping to see you in France. I hope maybe some others. And great to see all of you here. Thank you so much. And I hope those of you we haven't met yet in person, I hope we can meet sometime. And those of you that came here, it's been lovely to have this time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you so much again.
Very welcome. I hope it's been helpful.